That is a little bit too important to the lore, and I don't even think they go into it in Fate Zero.
Also, we're recording again now.
Yeah.
Why, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Anime Club. I don't think I did that properly this time.
I mean,
I might have.
I was better than was up.
We won't bother with introductions here.
It's not as if you can't tell our melodious voices apart. Obviously, we all sound like we have the voice of goddamn angels. How could you ever confuse any of us? Especially Realm and NikNak.
Boom. Boom.
So as far as character goes, I kind of want to leave this section. It's a bit of a hallmark of Gen Urobuchi, the author of the original light novel for this story. It's a bit of a hallmark of his writing style that every character is kind of written as a philosophy. So, like, Kiritsugu Emiya, the Saber's master, or Arturia's master, is definitely like, he's definitely supposed to be a more utilitarian philosophy. There's some obvious complexities there, and differences, but then you get to, I always interpret writer Iskandar or Alexander the Great as
spoilers.
We're going into characters here.
Yeah.
I hope you catch on to that at this point.
Also, Alexanders with a K and a Z and a C. No C, just a K and a Z.
I kind of interpret him more as obviously not directly based on it, but more of a Machiavellian type thing where it's more about upward movement than like ambition than it is about ruling philosophy. Which
is pretty accurate to him as a historical character when you think that like his whole life was basically dedicated to like, man, my dad fucked up. Okay, let me like fix his fuck up. Oh, I died either from like drinking too much or getting poisoned. Really, while I was still in my prime. But like,
my favorite thing about his character is that he's like the biggest bro in the series and one of the more likable characters I find as far as a human being. And he wants to start fucking World War III against Bill Clinton.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. My favorite thing about him historically is that he arranged like one of the most lavish funerals ever seen for his fucking horse. Bucephalus. Or I think it's Bucephalus. Yeah. Which like, what a bro. What an absolute bro.
They absolutely portrayed him as a bro in this series. And I really like him because of that. He's like, man, you know, he's like telling the main character, he's like telling his master, it's like, man, you know, this war you're in, it's not going to be the most important thing in your life, you know. It might look like that, but it's not really going to be the major deciding factor in your life if you come out of this alive.
It's like Sehki. It's low-key so perfect because like he was like actually a pretty like chill fucking ruler. Like sure, he like rolled through and conquered places, but he was like, you know, you can like keep your own religion and shit. Like, hey, how about I just like, I'm like Greek kind of, but I'll just like take on a bunch of Persian things because you guys are like cool and I like you.
Just build a statue of me and we all good.
Yeah, just name a city after me because like I need like 30 of those. But name a city after me, and like, we're good.
Within the anime, my favorite part about his character is that he just casually buys a video game console and video games like, we're gonna play this great new game that came out mid-series.
I mean, sounds perfect.
He doesn't even give a shit like about the fucking war. He's just like, bro, we're gonna play some games together. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I
really like him.
Yeah, I appreciate his bro energy. I really do.
Yeah. And
then I do like his master a lot as far as character development goes, because you do see it as you're watching the series, I find. I don't know if we want to go into a full discussion on that, but I do think Waver, his master, is really like, you see a point A, a point B, and you see his flaws early on, and you see Iskandar bounce off of those really well.
I mean, I have to admit, I do obviously like the spirits way more than the actual humans. And I think that's just because they're better fleshed out because they have more of a backstory that's outside of the series. And I think they did really well with the human characters. But I think on the whole, the spirit characters are a little bit more interesting to discuss. Because the human characters are more set to a goal. Like they have a goal, they're trying to achieve something. The spirit characters have just been like summoned here, and they're just like, well, this is a thing now.
I mean, it's understandable. Inevitably, everyone's favorite part of the series tends to be the heroic spirits.
Yeah.
But this series in general, I find, they made a lot more of an effort to bounce the human characters off of the spirit counterparts. Like, you've got Waver's, like, basically, like, his like, his inferiority complex bouncing off of this legendary, towering figure of a man.
Yeah. Is that a bug on my wall right there under my One Piece poster? And can you kill it if it is?
Which is funny because because now that you mention it, in Grand Order, at least in the game, that you mentioned there's two versions.
Okay.
There's two versions.
There's a bug flying around.
Okay. It's funny that you mentioned it too, because there's two versions of Alexander the Great. The one that we see in the anime and the one in the game, which is the young version of him. The very young version of him.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into Grand Order, though, because Grand Order is very much its own thing here.
Yeah.
But I just mentioned it because it's more accurate because because of the one comment that Waver made in the show where like he's supposedly actually really short.
Which is rarely true in history.
Actually, I will say this as a generalization, right? People have gotten taller over time.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the body casts of full-size people who lived in Pompeii,
mm-hmm.
which would have been around the right time period, I mean, give or take 300 years.
Oh, they tend to be shorter, but...
Yeah, like a fully grown, like, men maybe hit, like, 5 feet, 5.5. So, like, but the thing is, you have to think it's perspective. So,
mm-hmm.
to us, they look short because we are naturally taller and we have grown taller as a species. But back then, I mean, you don't know. I don't know exactly how tall he was or how tall they say he is. But like, it's all a matter of perspective. So if he was like maybe 5'6", he could have been like, that's like the equivalent of 6'6" to us. You know?
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
At risk of going on too much of a tangent here.
Yeah.
A big part of the fate, like the servants, that is sort of touched on in the anime is that not all these servants are supposed to be literal interpretations of what they were like in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as you get into the fictional ones, it's a lot of like, this is it's a bit of a combination of who they were along with the legends that defined them.
Which actually makes a lot more sense because the fictional ones, especially
mm-hmm.
people that develop over stories and mythology and in fiction, their stories are what defines them. So wherever their stories have gone, that is a legitimate thing to use or base it on. And if you're a historical character, but you've had stuff written about you in that way, you shouldn't discount anything that's written as a fictitious contribution because it's still part of your story. You know, it's still part of the story of this character,
mm-hmm.
Which is important. And I think I actually like it when they stray sometimes a little bit or go to like some obscure kind of thing that someone invented at some point, because then you actually get to go look for it or be like, huh, I did not know someone thought that.
It's sort of used as a way to explain away any potential future found inconsistencies with the character.
Which is preemptive and smart and would not work in any other context. Mm-hmm. In any other context, that would just be seen as, an excuse to write this character OOC.
Yeah.
But in this case, it works.
I think the biggest example I can think of that to transition into another character is Castor, Gilles de Rais. Because
mm-hmm.
Gilles de Rais Castor, there is some evidence that he wasn't actually all that fucked up historically.
Yeah.
And that he was mostly framed for his land. But here they take him the full crazy.
Yeah, which is interesting. It's like, so quick spin into Fate Grand Order, right? Quick. The only thing I know. It's like how they were like, hey, let's take the Crucible and Lovecraft and make a love baby.
There's a lot more Fate lore to that. It's a little unfortunate, but...
I know, we can't really cover it, but turning Crucible characters, which are kind of historical, it's historical, but it's a fiction,
mm-hmm.
and then adding elements of cosmic horror to really kind of bring in the whole witchy cuckoo crazy.
They added that to Gilles too. If you remember, he actually says Cthulhu in one of his opening things.
And I think that is just as interesting as an actual historical context that you could identify from records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is all about Bluebeard, right?
Yes, Bluebeard.
Yeah.
I love the story of Bluebeard, actually.
It's
Y'all
great.
should look it up if you've never read it or watched it. There is a really, really fucked up animated version somewhere on YouTube where you get to see decomposing corpses nailed up to the wall.
Oh, wow.
It's great. Look it up. It gave me nightmares for a year when I was in middle school.
I see.
No.
Actually, I was gonna make a slight comment. I really liked the summoning portion when Bluebeard was summoning the giant creature, because what immediately made me think of when he was like summoning the god or whatever, as I immediately thought of frickin' Azathoth from Lovecraft mythos.
Yes.
It's supposed to be sort of like an amalgamation of
Yeah,
that.
Yog-Sothoth.
Yeah,
all
Yog-Sothoth,
of them.
Azathoth.
Yeah. The one in the water.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be sort of an amalgamation without actually saying the name, so they don't get any. Again, they really like to cover
But
their ass
I
so
don't
they don't get anything wrong.
I think that's entirely fair.
But I mean, the thing is, though, is that like, but I think that would be fine because H.P. Lovecraft encouraged the use of his characters, so it would be fine if it in name.
In a way, so H.P. Lovecraft did encourage the use and play off of his characters, but H.P. Lovecraft created the Cthulhu mythos and a couple other things, but there are a lot of other writers that have contributed to that mythos that are not so liberal in the way they allow people to use it. So I think it's the fact that certain creatures were not created by Lovecraft, but by other authors who are a little bit more proprietary than Lovecraft was. Also, a good part of the reason why Lovecraft wasn't proprietary was because when he wrote these, he didn't make any money. Nobody liked that. This was not a thing that was popular.
In his time, yeah. He was,
Yeah,
he
it was
definitely
actually-
offered before his time.
Yeah, and it was actually one of his friends after he died that kept republishing these stories and persuading other authors to write in this universe, and the perpetuation of it that later made it much more famous. So I think there's an element that maybe if Lovecraft had known, he would have been more proprietary, but he wasn't, so other authors that contribute, though, can be now.
Yeah.
Slight tangent. I'm sorry.
It was
Lovecraft.
a really interesting tangent.
Yeah.
So I think, that's like the general. Like, okay, we do have Gilgamesh, but we went over Gilgamesh a lot in the last Fate episode. I think
Yeah.
the only change here, I think, is that he really plays up the mongrel aspect. Like he calls people mongrels a lot. So I don't want to get.
He's very much a pre-Enkidu Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Are we ever going to meet a post?
Yes, there's
Okay.
there's an anime that has a post
Okay.
Enkidu Gilgamesh in it. It
Just
might be a while
wondering.
before I get you guys there. A long while.
Yeah. Just wondering.
But, yeah. So, I guess first, before we go into like Waifu Wars, are there any other characters anyone had wanted to pick out here before we go into Waifu Wars?
I was talking about this with NikNak earlier, but I actually like the
Hassan.
yeah.
Oh,
Hassan
he's
is
an assassin.
Hassan of the 100 Personas for the fake
Yeah.
lorehounds out there.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was a couple of years ago. There was in elementary or middle school, and there was a Jeopardy question, and it was about the origins of the word assassin or something, and I ended up going down like a Wikipedia hole, and hashish or hassa or shisha or a bunch of like weird words from languages in the Middle East that I don't know and I don't want to insult by trying to pronounce them because it's been so long. And it was actually
Like
it was a really interesting kind of Googling and research hole to like kind of learn the possible origin of the term assassin, because it isn't the only possible origin. It's just the most commonly accepted etymology of the word. And there was a reference to it in something else we were talking about.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, that's it. The men with no faces.
Yeah.
Faceless
the
men.
House, was it the House of Many Faces?
Yeah, or the God of
The
Many.
Faceless Men.
The Faceless Men, yeah. And that's actually one of my favorite parts of Game of Thrones is the Faceless Men.
If you look at like a lot of pop culture, like big assassins organizations, like there's one in Skyrim as well. Hi, kittens. If you look at a lot of them are based off of the Hassan like historical figure.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that. The other character is the new Lancer.
Deermood.
Yeah, so you all will know if you listen to Waifu Wars or our previous Fate or any other video I mentioned it, but Kuklain is the unequivocal love of my life. Lancer from Stay Night. I adore him in every way. I'm also a massive fan of the mythological figure. And I really love that with the Lancer in this series, it's still from Celtic mythology. So it's still a person from the same mythological kind of...
Canon.
Yes, that's the word. Wasn't the word I was looking for, but that's a word that works. And his design harkens back to Cuchulainn. It looks very similar in a lot of ways, but it's unique in its own ways. And I really like that because it's actually quite rare that people use Celtic mythology in things because it's a little bit more twisted.
Fate fucking loves its Celtic mythology.
Yeah, and that's really rare to find. Often Greek is really common, Egyptian's really common, Japanese is really common, but it's a lot harder to find good representations of Celtic mythology. Especially heroes like Cuchulainn and stuff like that. It's just not super common, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's probably one of the mythologies that Fate likes to use the most, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. That's just because there's a lot of options available. Like, you can really do anything.
Like, I forget I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's one of the I think forest spirit deities of Celtic mythology. The Wendigo, is that it? Or is that a different?
The Wendigo is
Native American.
Native American.
Oh, never mind.
From,
no. Yeah, I was thinking of the
northeast coast. I think it's up towards New England.
I was thinking of the wrong thing.
Okay, you might not.
There might be. It might be something like similar in design. Maybe, I guess the best way I could describe it. I don't know.
Let the anthropology major help you.
Yeah, please.
You might be thinking of Cernunnos, the horned forest god of the that is common in early Celtic mythology. It's like this dude depicted in a forest with these massive fucking antlers. He's the god of the hunt. He's almost like an Odin figure.
Okay, yeah, that's probably who I was thinking of, but just didn't know because I didn't know the name.
He's not a commonly named god ever, but he is very common in very early Celtic mythology. He's actually just called the horned god in most examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
So, real quickly on the topic of the Hassan, I'll drop a little bit of a pointless Fate lore here. The Grail can actually, in theory, only summon Hassan into the assassin class because the assassin class is it's assassin. His name is the root of the term assassin.
So he can't be Hassan the Berserker.
Actually, no. Oh, yeah, no. You're never going to see Hassan the Berserker,
Yeah.
but you're supposed to only ever see, as an assassin, the only assassin that should appear in a Grail War is Hassan.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is simply one of the Hassans. So there's multiple Hassans, but that's another time, another place.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So everyone's favorite segment, I think. Waifu Wars.
Waifu
Wars. God, that was pathetic.
That really was. I'm sorry. I was distracted. I put some catnip down and my kittens have been coming in and out of the room. There was just a really good picture. I was distracted.
All right. Let's jump to Vorn. We haven't heard from Vorn in a while. What's your waifu?
It's the same as last one. If you remember it.
Oh, it's one of the girls.
No!
Oh, wait.
All
really?
of them! All of the waifus!
Y'all don't get to pull that shit again. You fucking pick. You either pick one or you pick none. We ain't doing this harem bullshit.
I would love to.
We ain't doing this harem bullshit. You pick one or none.
Fine.
Remember, kids, having more than one waifu will ruin your life.
Fucking hell.
There are several Egyptian pharaohs that can attest to the fact that you should never have two great wives.
Iris Field. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. How about you, Realm?
This one's a bit difficult for me.
There's a lot of cock in this anime.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I loved it so much. I have
Got
many
to look
options.
at everything.
You guys actually just come back to me. I'm gonna be thinking of it while you guys list off
Yeah,
yours.
because I could just pick and choose by my preferred body type if I wanted.
Yeah.
There's enough options that I could just, It's
Right.
like that scene from History of the World, part 1. No, 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 yes. No, 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 yes, yes. No, 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 yes.
If you want a quick review of all the female characters in this show, there's Artoria, King Arthur.
Yeah.
There's Iris Veal, and then there's Sola Yui.
Yeah.
Wife of that blonde.
And I guess technically, for like a frame, there's John d'Arc.
For a single, yes,
Yeah.
John is in a single frame.
Yeah.
Of the show.
Oh yeah.
But in that light, so who's your waifu, NikNak?
Oh, it's definitely Iskander. God, that man
Okay.
is a bro.
Ugh.
Bro.
Yes, the most
You know what?
bro
You know what?
surprise.
I think I'm gonna join NikNak on the bro train.
Okay.
Bro.
Hell yeah.
I think in this case I'm gonna go with Gilgamesh because I do really like him in this, but I have a comment that I remembered a second ago, and you're gonna give me a second because I want to remember that comment because it was a good one. Don't you dare count seconds. Don't
You should have seen it. I like pointed my finger up and then I looked at it.
Oh, I had a. Oh, God. Okay, give me a second. I'll cut this out in post.
Do,
It was a
do,
really good
do,
moment.
do, 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 do,
It was
do,
about the characterizations too. It was a little bit like more
do.
analytical, I think.
You know what? While you're thinking of it, I forgot to mention it, but Alexander the Great, he's a bro, and he would say, "Nice cock, bro."
Oh my God.
I don't think he would.
No, he probably would.
No, he wouldn't. But
No, servant or master?
I had to make the joke.
Sehki, servant or a
Yeah.
master?
It was about a servant.
King Arthur.
Oh,
Gilgamesh.
that was it. So, my one exception to generally being a fan of all of the servants is actually Arthur. I have not managed to like Arthur as a servant yet. And I think it's because in this case, the Arthur is quite far from a lot of historical and fictional portrayals.
Mhm.
And I haven't had a chance to see Artoria act in the way that Arthur would have literarily or historically in a lot of cases. And so I just get this feeling that it almost feels like they're using it for the name and the clout of like a King Arthur figure and like the mystery and mythology behind it, but I'm not actually getting King Arthur.
I will say they do play around with King Arthur a little bit more later on as far as the Arthurian legend goes, beyond just, I am a king with armor and I have Excalibur and I talk about chivalry.
Yeah, because the whole thing about, King Arthur is like he didn't know he was going to be king, and he like pulls the sword and then he, assembles this group and creates this kingdom, and he's so concerned with like his people and his knights, and he's just he gets betrayed, and there's all this stuff that happens.
They touch on it a little bit. You see it in the ED especially. It's kind of the biggest hint you'll have to the fact that there's a lot going on under the surface of this anime women.
I think just because we see Arturia so often in Fate, she's like a main character in quite a lot of Fate series. It almost feels like I've seen so much of her and seen so little of her character.
The only part that really, I think, gets into her character within the series that we watched so far has been that Banquet of Kings scene I like so much.
Yeah.
Because in that part, she's like, yeah, I fucking failed and I want to rectify that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's sort of your first acknowledgement of how King Arthur kind of let everything go to shit.
Yeah. I just think that personally, we see her enough that I wish we'd had a little more on her at this point. In any direction, really.
Yeah.
I mean, follow any mythology you want. Follow La Morte d'Arthur. Follow more historical records that say she may have been like a Roman left behind. Follow records that say she may have been this from that. But I just feel like we get a fan service girl who wields a really big sword, and has the name of someone really famous, but they've gender bent it to make it more fan appropriate. And I know that's because of where it's from. That doesn't make it good.
I will say they did do the male King Arthur at one point, but basically the original author was told, hey, we're turning this into a porn game to sell units, and he was forced to change the story in its entirety.
Yeah.
But I will also say, even in Fate Zero, they do give it a little bit more time. I will say this. you should notice, and I did want to bring this up, Berserker is a bit of a, because he does, like, you'll notice he's targeting King Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's things behind that.
Well, like I said, I'm excited to see more, because I know at some point they have to give more characterization on her. It's just we haven't gotten to it, and because we've gotten so much on all the others, it feels like we're getting left behind a little.
I will say I do agree that as far as the characters that actually meant to get like Hassan is not meant to get this deep amount of characterization in Fate. It's clear from the beginning that it's very much a tool for the story, but there's some cool lore there.
Yeah.
But like of the characters we're trying to get characterization from, I do agree she does tend to have, at least in this series, the weakest portrayal in many ways, at least throughout. Because like obviously she's so oversigned by Gilgamesh, Iskandar, Jills, Diarmid to an extent. I don't know.
I think another, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, but another thing with King Arthur versus everyone else we've seen between Stay Night and Zero is King Arthur is mainly a fictional character who 99% of the King Arthur mythology revolves around romance authors from around 1700 to like 1900 who were like, hey, this dude wrote this like tragedy called La Mort d'Arthur, but like, let's make it sexy. Let's get some fucking in there. Let's get some sexy men in there. Let's make this a bodice ripper for these women who are going to hide it in their underwear drawers. So I get why we don't have as much like deep context and meaning as we would for like Alexander the Great or anyone who's like a historical figure or lived like some sort of grateful life that we see. So I get that, but I'm waiting for more. I'm just that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm waiting for more.
Before we go and move on to our final bots, I do want to touch on Berserker. Berserker is not named within the stretch of the anime.
No, we did just spoil that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that might have been. I think Realm might have
yeah.
dropped the name in there.
I dropped the name.
Yeah, it was Realm.
Yeah. But I do, and this kind of goes in the animation, kind of the characters. I do like how they handle Berserker here, where it's this CG animation that looks somewhat out of place, but also it looks in the fights, it flows really well with the fight scenes, I find.
Like especially in the fight,
something I appreciate
in the
about
fighter,
Berserker.
especially in the fighter jet portion where like him and Gilgamesh are fighting.
Yeah, I didn't mention it in storylines, but like, I'll bring it up in final bots. Why don't we bring it up there?
We should move into final
I'll bring
bots.
up like specific fight scenes in the final bots with full context.
Yeah, anything anyone else wants to add now that I've tangentially distracted us?
Nah, not really.
No?
Nah,
Okay.
I'm good.
Try harder.
Everyone.
No one.